She let him go ahead in the supermarket line. He paid for her groceries and said, "I'm buying your time too." You think you know how kindness works. You give, someone receives, end of story. But what if every small gesture carries a weight you can't see? What if that stranger in line isn't just a stranger? Sarah was running late. 3 items in her basket, 20 minutes before her daughter's recital. The man behind her had a full cart, frozen dinners, canned soup, a single birthday cake. "Go ahead," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. She almost didn't hear him, almost kept her place in line like we all do, protecting our spot in the queue of life, but something in his eyes made her pause. "Are you sure?" she asked. He nodded, just nodded. No smile, no grand gesture, just a simple movement of his head that would change everything. Sarah stepped forward. The cashier scanned her items. Milk, bread, flowers for her daughter. $17.32. "I'll get that," the man said, reaching past her with his credit card. "Oh no, I couldn't." "I'm buying your time too," he interrupted. 20 minutes is worth more than $17 when it's for your daughter. How did he know? How could this stranger possibly know about the recital, about her daughter waiting in a tiny ballet outfit, about the guilt she carried for always running late? She looked at him then, really looked, really. Tired eyes, wedding ring on a chain around his neck instead of his finger, that birthday cake for one. Sometimes the universe puts people in your path not by accident, but by design. Sometimes a supermarket line becomes a crossroads. Sometimes 3 items and $17 become a lesson in what really matters. Sarah made it to the recital. She sat in the front row, flowers in hand, watching her daughter spin and leap across the stage. But she couldn't stop thinking about the man, about his words, about the way he said, "your time," like he understood its true value. What makes a moment matter? Is it the action itself or the understanding behind it? Is it the $17 or the 20 minutes or something deeper that passes between 2 souls in a fluorescent lit store? You walk past 100 people every day, each carrying their own weight, their own birthday cakes for one, their own reasons for kindness, each a potential collision of fates waiting to happen. But you have to see them first. You have to really see them. The man's name was David. Sarah didn't know that yet. She didn't know he'd been buying strangers' groceries every Tuesday for the past year. She didn't know why Tuesdays. She didn't know why groceries. She didn't know about Emma. You carry your ghosts differently than others carry theirs. Some wear them like armor, hard and visible. Others, like David, turn them into gifts for strangers. Emma would have been 23 that Tuesday. Would have been if cancer cared about birthday plans and college graduations and all the Tuesdays that should have come after. She loved supermarkets, strange thing for a 22-year-old to love, but Emma found magic in ordinary places. She'd spend hours picking the perfect apple, reading cereal boxes like poetry, making up stories about other shoppers. "Dad," she'd say, "see that woman with 3 items? She's buying time. Those aren't groceries. They're minutes she's trying to save for something that matters more." David thought it was just one of Emma's games, until it wasn't. The last Tuesday they shopped together, Emma was too weak to walk the aisles. David pushed her in a wheelchair, letting her direct him like a film director framing the perfect shot. She made him buy groceries for the elderly man in aisle 3, made him pay for the young mother's formula in the checkout line. "We're buying their time, Dad. We're giving them minutes they can use somewhere else, with someone else, for something else." 2 weeks later, Emma was gone. But Tuesdays remained. You think grief has to look like tears and isolation. You think healing means forgetting. But what if grief looks like a credit card at a checkout counter? What if healing means becoming the story someone else tells? Every Tuesday, David goes to the same supermarket. He fills his cart with things he'll donate later. Frozen dinners for the shelter, soup for the food bank. But the cake, that's always just for Emma. A single slice he'll eat alone, singing happy birthday to the space where she should be. And he watches for someone buying time, someone with 3 items and somewhere important to be. Someone who might carry the story forward without even knowing it. Sarah doesn't know any of this as she watches her daughter dance. She doesn't know that 16 blocks away, David is sitting in his car in the parking lot, finally crying for the first time in months. She doesn't know that her accepting his kindness was the first time in a year someone had really seen him, had paused long enough to look into his eyes and ask, "Are you sure?" Sometimes healing happens in the spaces between strangers. Sometimes it happens $17 at a time. Do you see the weight others carry? Do you notice the wedding rings on chains, the cakes for one, the eyes that hold oceans of untold stories? Or do you rush past, protecting your place in line, missing the miracles that wait in ordinary moments? Every encounter is a choice. Every line is a chance. Every stranger might be carrying exactly what you need to carry you forward. Pay attention. The next person you meet might be buying more than groceries. They might be buying back pieces of their soul, $17 at a time. Sarah couldn't sleep that night. The image of David's wedding ring on a chain haunted her. She'd worn her mother's ring the same way after the divorce, before she was ready to let go completely. You recognize pain in others when you've worn it yourself. You see the small details that scream the loudest truths. A ring on a chain, a cake for one, the way someone says time like they're running out of it. At 2 in the morning, she gave up on sleep and opened her laptop. Started writing a post she'd never planned to write. A stranger bought my groceries today, but he said something that won't leave me alone. I'm buying your time too. What if we all did that? What if we stopped seeing kindness as a transaction and started seeing it as time gifted to another human being? She almost didn't hit publish. Who was she to talk about kindness when she'd almost kept her place in line? Who was she to philosophize about time when she was always running out of it? But Emma would have hit publish. Sarah didn't know about Emma, but somehow she felt her presence in that moment, the way you feel rain coming before the first drop falls. By morning, the post had 30 shares. By noon, 300. By the time Sarah picked up her daughter from school, strangers were commenting with their own stories. An elderly man paid for my coffee yesterday, said his wife used to drink the same order. A teenager helped me carry groceries to my car, wouldn't take money, said someone did it for his grandma once. I've been buying people's parking meters downtown, $2 to save someone from a $30 ticket. It's not much, but maybe it's enough. You think viral means millions of views and celebrity endorsements, but real viral happens in the heart. Real viral happens when one person's story becomes permission for another person's kindness. Sarah's daughter, Lily, read the comments over her shoulder, 7 years old, with eyes that saw everything. "Mummy, why did the man buy our food?" How do you explain grief to a child? How do you explain that sometimes people heal by healing others? "I think he was sad," Sarah said finally. And sometimes, when we're sad, making other people happy helps us feel better. Like when I share my cookies with Ben when he forgets his lunch. Exactly like that. Lily thought for a moment. That serious consideration only children can master. We should find him and share our cookies. From the mouths of babes come the simplest truths. We should find each other. We should share our cookies. We should buy each other's time when time is all we have to give. That night, Sarah went back to the same supermarket. Different cashier, different crowd. But she stood in the same spot where David had stood. She watched the lines, looking for someone who might need their time bought. An elderly woman with an oxygen tank, a father with twin toddlers melting down in the cart, a teenager counting change for a single can of soup. She paid for all three, quietly, quickly, before they could protest. The elderly woman cried. The father almost collapsed with relief. The teenager ran after her in the parking lot. "Why?" he asked. "Just that. Just why? Because someone did it for me, Sarah said. And someday, you'll do it for someone else. She didn't tell him about the ring on a chain, or the cake for one, didn't tell him about Emma, whose story she didn't yet know but somehow felt, didn't tell him that kindness isn't a circle, but a spiral, expanding outward, touching lives in ways we never see. You want to matter, you want to leave a mark on this world. But what if your mark isn't your name on a building or your face on a screen? What if it's a $17 grocery bill that starts a chain reaction of human goodness? David saw the post 3 days later. His neighbor showed it to him, innocent of the connection, just sharing something nice she'd found online. "Look at this," she said. "Someone in our city started this beautiful movement. People are paying for each other's groceries everywhere. They're calling it buying time. Isn't that lovely? You think coincidences are random. You think the universe is chaos and chance. But what if every action creates ripples you can't see? What if Emma was right, and we're all connected by invisible threads of kindness?" David read Sarah's words on the screen, read about the ring on a chain she'd noticed, read about how she couldn't sleep, haunted by a stranger's sadness, read about Lily wanting to share cookies with the sad man. His hands shook. Emma would have loved this, would have screenshot it, printed it, taped it to the refrigerator with all her other evidence that people were basically good. "You okay, hon?" his neighbor asked. "That was me," he whispered. "I'm the stranger. That was me." Sometimes the world feels impossibly large. 7 billion people spinning on a rock through space, each locked in their own struggles. But then something like this happens. A moment in a supermarket line becomes a movement. A father's grief becomes a city's grace. David commented on the post. Just 5 words. "Your daughter's recital was beautiful." Sarah saw it an hour later, stared at the screen, heart pounding. How? How could he know? She clicked on his profile. Sparse, mostly empty, but there was one photo. David and a young woman, both laughing, both holding grocery bags like trophies. The caption, "Emma's last Tuesday. She was right about everything." You want signs that your loved ones are still with you. You look for cardinals and pennies and songs on the radio at just the right moment. But what if the signs are bigger? What if they're movements of human kindness that ripple outward like waves? Sarah messaged him. "Would you like to meet for coffee? My daughter really does want to share her cookies." David stared at the message for 20 minutes. Emma had been gone for 378 days. He'd counted every one, measured time in Tuesdays and grocery bills, and the weight of absence. "Yes," he typed, then deleted it, typed again. Emma would have liked that. They met at a small cafe downtown. Sarah brought Lily and a Tupperware container of chocolate chip cookies. David brought photo albums he hadn't opened in a year. "This is Emma," he said, showing Lily a picture. "She loved supermarkets." "That's silly," Lily giggled. "Nobody loves supermarkets." She said they were museums of human need, that you could tell everything about a person by what they bought and when they bought it. Lily considered this with 7-year-old wisdom. "What did our stuff tell her?" David smiled, the first real smile in 378 days. "That your mom was in a hurry to see someone she loved very much." Children see through the complications adults create. Lily didn't see a grieving stranger. She saw a sad man who needed cookies. So she shared them one by one, asking about each photo in the album. "Tell me about this one. That's Emma at graduation. She was going to be a teacher. This one, her first apartment. She painted the walls yellow because she said sadness couldn't stick to yellow walls. This one, last Christmas. She made everyone give gifts of time instead of things. Her brother got coupons for hiking trips. Her mother got promises of Sunday dinners. I got Tuesdays. She gave me all her Tuesdays. The cookies ran out, the stories didn't." Sarah listened, Lily asked questions, and David remembered that talking about Emma didn't have to hurt, it could heal. When you lose someone, people tell you time heals all wounds. They're wrong. Time doesn't heal, connection does, sharing does. The simple act of saying their name to someone who wants to hear it. Check your heart right now. Who have you stopped talking about because it hurts too much? Whose name sits silent on your tongue? Maybe it's time to find someone who'll share cookies and listen. Maybe it's time to let their story live again, one Tuesday at a time. The movement grew. Not because Sarah promoted it or David endorsed it, but because truth spreads like wildfire when hearts are ready kindling. A CEO in Seattle instituted Buying Time Fridays. Employees could leave 2 hours early if they spent those hours helping someone else. A teacher in Miami started a classroom project where students documented acts of kindness. A grandmother in Portland stood at bus stops paying fares for strangers. You think change happens through legislation and leaders. But real change happens in grocery lines and parking lots, in the 1,000 tiny choices we make every day. 3 months after that first encounter, Sarah got a call from a reporter. "We're doing a story on the buying time movement. Would you be willing to be interviewed?" She almost said no. It felt wrong, taking credit for something that wasn't hers. The movement belonged to David's grief and Emma's wisdom, and everyone who'd ever stood in a line wondering if kindness still mattered. "Only if David does it with me," she said. They met the reporter at the same supermarket where it all began. The manager had put up a small sign by the registers. "This is a buying time location. Random acts of kindness encouraged." "How does it feel," the reporter asked, "to have started something this big?" David spoke first. "We didn't start anything. Emma did. My daughter. She believed every person was 3 acts of kindness away from changing their life. One to receive, one to believe, one to give." "She sounds special." "She was ordinary," David corrected. "That's what made her special." She saw ordinary moments as opportunities for grace. The camera rolled. Sarah talked about running late, about time as currency, about teaching children that kindness multiplies. David talked about Tuesdays, about grief transformed to gift, about buying time when you've run out of it. But Lily stole the show. "Sometimes people are sad, and they don't have anyone to share cookies with," she said, chocolate chip crumbs on her chin. "So we have to be the cookie people. We have to find them and share." Be the cookie people. In 4 words, a 7-year-old summarized what philosophers and theologians had spent centuries trying to express. The segment aired on a Tuesday. David watched it from Emma's grave, laptop balanced on his knees, sharing the moment with her the only way he could. "You did this, baby girl," he whispered to the headstone. "You changed the world with grocery bags and Tuesday wisdom." The wind picked up, scattering leaves across the cemetery. One landed on the laptop screen, right over Lily's face. A maple leaf, Emma's favorite. The kind she used to press between books and give to strangers. You look for signs, and sometimes they come as maple leaves on computer screens. Sometimes they come as 7-year-olds with cookie crumbs. Sometimes they come as movements that spread across continents, all from a moment in a grocery line. Sarah's phone buzzed, a text from a number she didn't recognize. "I was the teenager you bought soup for. I just bought groceries for my entire apartment building's elderly residents. Thought you should know, the spiral continues." She screenshot it, sent it to David. He replied with a photo, Emma's yellow apartment wall, now covered in printed stories from the buying time movement. "I ran out of room," he texted, "had to start a second wall." When you plant kindness, you never see all the flowers that bloom. You never count all the lives that change. You just trust that somewhere, someone is painting their walls yellow because sadness can't stick to acts of love. The reporter called back a week later. "The response has been incredible. People want to know, what's next? How do you organize something this organic?" "You don't," Sarah said. "You just trust people to be good. You give them permission to care. The rest happens naturally." But even as she said it, she knew something was building. Something bigger than grocery bills and borrowed time. Something Emma had seen from the beginning. Winter came early that year. The first snow fell on a Tuesday, of course. David stood in his usual grocery line, watching a young mother juggle a baby, a toddler, and a cart full of formula and diapers. You know struggle when you see it. It's in the shoulders, the way they carry weight that's more than physical. It's in the eyes, darting between prices and crying children, calculating what can wait until next payday. "Go ahead," David said, gesturing to his place in line. She looked at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. When's the last time someone had offered her anything without wanting something back? "I'll get those too," he added, nodding at her groceries. I can't. That's over $100. "It's Tuesday," David said simply. "I buy groceries on Tuesdays. It's what I do." The cashier smiled. She'd seen David every Tuesday for 2 years now, watched him transform from a ghost buying cake for one to a man on a mission. "He does this," the cashier confirmed. "Every week. You'd be doing him a favor by accepting." The mother's baby started crying. The toddler pulled candy from the shelf. Everything was chaos and noise and barely controlled disaster. But David just waited, patient as prayer. "Why?" the mother asked finally. "Because my daughter taught me that time is the only real currency. And right now, you need time more than I need money," she cried. Right there between the Snickers bars and celebrity magazines, she broke. The kind of crying that comes when you've been strong too long and someone finally sees you. "I haven't slept in 3 days, she whispered. "My husband left. I just started a new job. I don't know how to do this alone." "Nobody does it alone," David said. "We just pretend we do." The people in line behind them didn't complain, didn't check their watches or roll their eyes. Instead, something beautiful happened. The man behind David offered to help carry groceries to the mother's car. The woman behind him gave the toddler a small toy from her purse. The teenager at the back stepped forward with a packet of tissues. 1 line, 6 strangers. A moment of collective grace that would have made Emma dance. You think miracles look like parting seas and burning bushes, but most miracles look like grocery lines where humanity remembers itself, where strangers become family for just long enough to matter. Outside, the snow fell heavier. David helped load the car, the toddler now calm with his new toy. The baby had stopped crying, soothed by the sudden absence of her mother's stress. "I don't even know your name," the mother said. "David, and that's not important. What's important is that you remember this when you're back on your feet. Find someone else buying time. Pay it forward." "How will I know?" David smiled. Emma's smile, the one he'd inherited along with her mission. "You'll know. They'll be the ones who look like you do right now, like they're drowning in shallow water, like they need someone to see them." She drove away, but not alone. She carried with her the knowledge that strangers could be angels, that Tuesdays could be holy, that $100 could buy more than groceries. It could buy faith in humanity. David sat in his car, watching the snow cover the parking lot. His phone buzzed. Sarah. "Local news wants to do a Christmas special on the movement. They want to film at the store." He thought about Emma, about how she'd feel about cameras and attention and movements with capital M's. She'd probably laugh, probably say something about how kindness wasn't meant to be performed. But then he thought about the mother's face, about all the faces over 2 years of Tuesdays, about the stories Sarah forwarded him from around the world, buying time in languages he didn't speak, in currencies he didn't recognize. "Only if we do it right," he texted back. "No feel-good fluff. We tell them about the hard parts too, the grief, the loneliness, the way kindness costs something real." "Agreed. Lily wants to bring cookies. Emma would approve." That night, David did something he hadn't done in 743 days. He went through Emma's journals, found the entry from her last Tuesday, her handwriting shaky but determined. "Dad will need a project when I'm gone. Hope he finds it in the cereal aisle. Hope he remembers that love is a verb, not a feeling. Hope he buys time for everyone who's running out of it." How did she know? How do children see so clearly what adults complicate? You're reading this, wondering if any of it applies to you, wondering if you have time to buy or grief to transform or cookies to share. Here's the truth. You do. We all do. The only question is whether you'll recognize your Tuesday when it comes. The Christmas special almost didn't happen. 2 days before filming, Lily got sick. Nothing serious, just a winter bug, but Sarah called David to cancel. "We can reschedule," she said. "This isn't worth risking her health. You make plans and life laughs. You schedule kindness and crisis intervenes." But David had learned something in 750 days of Tuesdays. The interruptions are often the point. "What if we bring the filming to her?" he suggested. "Emma always said the best stories happen when plans fall apart." So that's how a news crew ended up in Sarah's living room, Lily wrapped in blankets on the couch, still insisting on wearing her favorite dress over her pajamas. "Why does kindness matter?" the reporter asked her. Lily looked at the camera with the seriousness only sick 7-year-olds can muster. "Because everybody's sad sometimes, and when you're sad, cookies help, but only if someone shares them." The reporter turned to David. "You've spent over $30,000 buying strangers' groceries. Why not just donate to charity?" "Charity's important," David said, "but it's anonymous, distant." Emma believed in collision kindness, the kind that happens face to face, eye to eye, human to human. Collision kindness. When lives collide in ordinary places and create extraordinary moments, when you see someone not as a stranger but as a fellow traveler who might be carrying more than their groceries. Sarah spoke up from behind Lily's cocoon of blankets. "The movement isn't about money. It's about seeing, really seeing people. David saw me that day, not just a woman with 3 items, but a mother running late, carrying guilt, needing grace." The reporter leaned forward. "Critics say this is just privileged people making themselves feel better. That real change requires systemic solutions, not random acts." The room went quiet. Even Lily stopped fidgeting. You wait for the easy answers, the feel-good rebuttals. But David and Sarah had lived in the messy middle, where kindness meets complexity. "They're right," Sarah said finally. "Random acts don't fix broken systems, but they fix broken moments. They remind us that we're human. They practice the muscle of caring, so maybe we'll use it when we vote, when we hire, when we make the big decisions." "Emma wrote something," David added, pulling out a worn notebook. She said, "Kindness isn't a solution, it's a syntax. It's how we learn to speak human to each other again." The camera captured it all, the notebook trembling in David's hands, Sarah reaching over to steady them, Lily climbing into David's lap, despite having known him only 6 months. This is what family looks like in the 21st century. Not always blood, not always traditional. Sometimes it's grieving fathers and divorced mothers and sick children, bound together by Tuesday groceries and shared cookies. "Last question," the reporter said. "What would you tell someone watching who wants to help but doesn't know how?" Lily raised her hand like she was in school. "Start small. Share 1 cookie, buy 1 candy bar, hold 1 door. Mommy says kindness is like a piggy bank. You can only put in pennies, but pennies add up." After the crew left, the 3 of them sat in Sarah's living room eating soup David had brought. The Christmas tree lights blinked in the corner, reflecting off the window where snow continued to fall. "I miss her," David said suddenly. "Emma, I miss her every day. Buying groceries helps, but it doesn't fill the hole." "It's not supposed to," Sarah said gently. "The hole is proof she was here, that she mattered. We're not trying to fill it. We're trying to plant flowers around it. You think healing means getting over it, getting past it, getting through it. But what if healing means getting into it? Diving deep into the love that caused the pain and finding ways to honor it." Lily fell asleep between them, small hands clutching David's sleeve. Sarah covered her with another blanket. "She loves you," Sarah whispered. "Says you're her grocery grandpa." Emma would have loved her back, would have taught her to read cereal boxes like poetry. They sat in comfortable silence, Two broken people who'd found wholeness in shared purpose. Outside, the world spun on, full of injustice and systems that needed changing and problems too big for grocery money to solve. But inside, in that small living room, kindness had created a pocket of peace. A place where grief and grace danced together, where strangers became family, where Tuesdays became holy. The special aired on Christmas Eve to 4 million viewers. But the real miracle had already happened in a living room with soup and sleeping children, and the sound of snow against windows. Love multiplies when divided. That's the mathematics Emma understood. That's the equation we're all trying to solve. Check your answer. When did you last divide your love? When did you last multiply someone else's joy? The formula works every time, but only if you use it. January brought unexpected mail to David's house. Hundreds of letters from around the world, forwarded by the news station. He and Sarah spent a Saturday reading them together while Lily played nearby. "Dear Grocery Angel," one began, "I'm a single dad in Michigan. Your story inspired me to start Coffee Fridays at our local cafe. I buy coffee for whoever's behind me in line. Last week, a woman cried and said it was the first kind thing that had happened to her all month." Another, "I'm 82 years old and thought my useful days were over, but I can still buy groceries. Every Wednesday now I'm at the store looking for young parents who need help. It gives me purpose. Thank you for reminding me I still have something to give." You think your story is just yours. You think your pain is private, your healing personal. But every story shared becomes permission for someone else to share theirs. Every wound revealed becomes a door for someone else's healing. A letter from Japan, translated carefully. "We started buying time Tokyo. In our culture, accepting help is difficult, but framing it as time, not charity, changes everything. My daughter calls it the kindness that doesn't bow, because it happens between equals." From Brazil. "My favela started a time bank. We trade hours of help. I teach English for 2 hours. I receive 2 hours of childcare. Money is scarce here, but time we can share. Your movement taught us that wealth isn't just currency." Lily looked up from her coloring. "Are all these people being cookie people?" "Yes," Sarah said, "all over the world." "Good. Emma must be really happy. Children understand heaven differently than adults. They don't need theology or philosophy. They just know that love continues, that goodness echoes, that people we've lost can still change the world through the seeds they planted." One letter stood out. Handwritten in shaky script, "My son was the teenager you bought soup for that night. He'd been kicked out of his house for being gay, was planning to sleep in the park. Your $20 didn't just buy soup. It bought him hope. He used the change to call me. We reconciled. He's home now. Thank you for saving my family." David had to stop reading. Some moments are too big for words, too sacred for sentences. He'd bought soup for a hungry kid. Never knew he was buying a reunion, a reconciliation, a second chance at love. "This one's in Spanish," Sarah said, translating slowly. "A woman in Mexico City says her whole apartment building now has a Tuesday fund. Everyone contributes what they can. They take turns being David, buying groceries for neighbors in need." The letters kept coming. A CEO in Germany who restructured his company's bonus system to include kindness hours. A school in India where students earned grades for documented acts of service. A nursing home in Canada where residents pooled their pension money to buy groceries for young families. You're looking for massive change. You want revolutions and reforms and sweeping solutions. But real change happens letter by letter, story by story, one Tuesday at a time. "We need to respond," Sarah said. "People need to know we've read these." "All of them?" "All of them. Everyone who took the time to write deserves to know they were heard." So they started. David, Sarah, and even Lily, who drew pictures for the children who'd written. Each response personal, each acknowledgement genuine. "Dear Coffee Angel of Michigan, Emma would have loved your Fridays. She believed coffee was liquid kindness. Keep pouring. Dear grandmother of purpose, you remind us that useful never expires. Every Wednesday you shop, Emma shops with you. Dear Tokyo time traders, you've created what Emma always dreamed of, a world where kindness needs no translation. It took months. David's dining table became command central for a correspondence course in compassion. Lily learned geography through kindness, pointing out countries on her globe where cookie people lived. But something else happened in those months of letter writing. David's house, empty since Emma died, filled with life again. Sarah and Lily became fixtures, not visitors. Dinners stretched into evenings. Weekends meant letter-writing parties with pizza and purpose. You know what Emma would say about this? David asked one night, gesturing at the controlled chaos of papers and stamps and half-eaten pizza. What? Sarah asked, though she was learning to hear Emma's voice through David's memories. She'd say, we're becoming a collision family, lives that crashed together and decided to stick. Lily looked up from her drawing, marker poised. Are we a family now? Adults complicate everything. We need definitions and boundaries and official declarations. Children just need to know if love is reliable, if belonging is real, if the people who matter will stay. Yeah, David said, voice thick. I think we are. Sarah reached across the table, past the letters from strangers who'd become friends, past the evidence of a movement neither had intended. She squeezed David's hand. Emma picked good, she said simply. Because that's what the dead do when we honor them right. They keep matchmaking, keep connecting, keep building families from the fragments they left behind. Outside, January snow fell on a world slightly kinder than it had been a year ago. Inside, a collision family wrote letters to strangers, spreading a young woman's legacy, $17 at a time. The first anniversary arrived on a Tuesday, because of course it did. David stood in the same spot where he'd first seen Sarah, holding the same kind of cake, chocolate with vanilla frosting, Emma's favorite. You mark time differently after loss. Not in months or years, but in since the last hug, since the last laugh, since the last Tuesday shopping trip that you didn't know would be the last. Sir? The cashier, a new one who didn't know the story, pointed at the growing line behind him. Are you ready? Was he ready? After 365 days of buying time for strangers, was he ready to face this particular Tuesday? He's with me, a voice said. Sarah appeared beside him, Lily in tow. We're together. Together, such a simple word for such a complicated journey, from strangers to story sharers to something that didn't need a name because it just was. Happy Emma Day, Lily announced to the confused cashier. We're celebrating someone who loved grocery stores. The teenager bagging groceries perked up. Wait, are you the buying time guy? Dude, you're like famous. My mum started doing it because of you. She's bought like 50 people's stuff. Fame sits strangely on ordinary people. David had never wanted to be the buying time guy. He just wanted to survive Tuesdays without drowning. But Emma had always said that purpose finds you when you're busy doing something else. Your mom sounds kind, David managed. She is now. She wasn't always. Said your story reminded her that small things matter, that you don't have to be rich to be generous. They paid for their items, the cake, flowers for Emma's grave, and groceries for whoever would need them today. The bagger refused to let them pay for the flowers. These are on me, he said, for Emma. For starting something that changed my mom. You plant seeds in your worst moments, and gardens grow in places you never see. A grieving father's Tuesday routine becomes a teenager's testimony about a mother transformed. At the cemetery, they found Emma's grave covered in small offerings, grocery receipts held down by stones, notes tucked under flowers. Someone had left a yellow-painted rock with the words, "Sadness can't stick here." Dad, look, Sarah pointed to a small gathering near the cemetery entrance. What's that? 20 or 30 people stood in a loose circle, each holding grocery bags. As David, Sarah, and Lily approached, they recognized faces from the movement. The elderly woman with the oxygen tank, the father with twins, the teenager who'd counted change for soup. "We wanted to be here," the elderly woman said, "to say thank you. To Emma. To you. To the moment that changed us all." They'd organized themselves online, the first annual Emma Day. Not a day of mourning, but a day of moving, into stores, into lives, into the sacred space where strangers become family. She would have hated this, David said, but he was smiling through tears. Too much fuss, too much attention. "No," the father with twins corrected. "She would have loved that it wasn't about her. Look, we're not here for Emma, we're here for each other. She just gave us the excuse." One by one, they shared their stories. The elderly woman had started a senior center buying club. The father had created a single-parent support network that met in grocery stores. The teenager had gotten a job at that same store and used his employee discount to help customers in need. Ripples becoming waves, becoming tsunamis of kindness that crashed against the shores of indifference and left them changed. You think legacy means buildings with your name or fortunes in your will. But real legacy looks like strangers in a cemetery celebrating someone they never met, carrying grocery bags like torches, proving that love outlives the lover. "We have something for you," the teenager said. He pulled out a notebook, worn and familiar, found this at a used bookstore, recognized the handwriting from the news special. Emma's first journal, the one David thought had been lost in the hospital chaos. Inside, her teenage thoughts about the world, already seeing supermarkets as sacred, already understanding that ordinary moments held extraordinary grace. "Page 47, the teenager said. "Read it." David's hands shook as he found the page. Emma's 16-year-old handwriting, full of loops and hearts, had a dream that Dad was alone and sad. But then, all these people showed up with groceries. They said I sent them. Dream Me said, "Death isn't the end of love. It's just love changing form." Weird dream, but felt true. Note to self, teach Dad about the grocery gospel before it's too late. The grocery gospel. Trust Emma to make theology out of produce aisles. Lily tugged on David's sleeve. "Can I read something too?" She pulled out a crumpled paper from her pocket. "I wrote Emma a letter. Mommy said she can hear us if we read at her special place." Everyone went quiet. Even the wind stilled, as if nature itself leaned in to listen. "Dear Emma," Lily read, sounding out each word carefully. "Thank you for sending David to buy our milk. He's teaching me and Mommy the grocery gospel. I'm 7 now, but when I grow up, I want to buy time for sad people too. Also, I think you would like my cookies. Love, Lily. P.S. We're taking good care of your dad." Taking good care of your dad, the job of every child, reversed. The dance of loss, where strangers become guardians and 7-year-olds become healers. The group stood in silence, each holding their private griefs and public groceries. Then, without planning, they began to move. Through the cemetery, out to their cars, off to their assigned stores. Emma Day had officially begun. David, Sarah, and Lily stayed behind. They laid the flowers, cut the cake, sat on the cold ground sharing memories and chocolate. "You know what day it is?" Sarah asked suddenly. "Tuesday. The anniversary, Emma Day. It's also the day I say yes." David looked at her, confused. She pulled out a small velvet box. "I know this is backwards. I know we're not traditional, but Emma taught us that love doesn't follow rules, it follows hearts. So David Chen, will you let Lily and me officially join your collision family? Will you marry us?" You wait for the big moments to look like movies, sunset proposals and grand gestures. But real moments happen in cemeteries with chocolate cake and children who already call you family. "Emma planned this," David said, half laughing, half crying. "Somehow she planned this." "Is that a yes?" Lily asked, bouncing with 7-year-old impatience. "Yes. Yes to all of it. Yes to collision families and grocery gospels, and loving Emma by loving forward." They kissed there, in front of Emma's grave, while Lily cheered, and somewhere in the distance, cash registers rang with the sound of strangers buying time. This is how movements become families, how Tuesdays become holy. How one young woman's understanding that supermarkets are museums of human need transforms a world, one $17 transaction at a time. The wedding happened in a supermarket. Where else could it happen? The manager, who'd watched the whole story unfold, offered the space after hours. They decorated the aisles with yellow ribbons, Emma's favorite color, and set up chairs between the breakfast cereals and the baking supplies. You dream of perfect weddings in perfect places. But perfection isn't about venues or vendors. It's about truth. And the truth was that their love had been born between the Snickers bars and celebrity magazines, baptized in $17 and borrowed time. "Dearly beloved," the officiant began, "we are gathered here in aisle 7. The small crowd laughed. 50 people who'd become family through grocery bills and Tuesday missions, each holding a single yellow rose, Emma's flower, Emma's color, Emma's continued presence in every moment. David had asked the teenager, Marcus they'd learned his name, to be his best man. Sarah chose the elderly woman, Mrs. Chen, no relation, just cosmic coincidence, as her matron of honor. Lily, of course, was everything else, flower girl, ring bearer, chief cookie distributor. "Do you, David, take Sarah to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold in plenty and in want, in sickness and in health, in short checkout lines and long ones, for all the Tuesdays that remain?" "I do. Emma does too. We both do. Because that's how love works after loss. You don't leave the dead behind. You carry them forward, include them in vows, make space for their continued presence in every new beginning. Do you, Sarah, take David to be your lawfully wedded husband, to love and to cherish, to share groceries and grace, to buy time when he's running out of it, to be his collision family for all the days that follow?" "We do. Lily and I both do." Marcus stepped forward with the rings. "Emma wrote something," he said, because apparently Emma had written everything, prepared for everything, orchestrated this whole impossible love story from beyond. Found it in her journal, page 200. He read, "If Dad ever finds love again, tell her this. Thank you for seeing him in the cereal aisle. Thank you for having a daughter who shares cookies. Thank you for proving that families aren't made by blood, but by choice. By chance, by the beautiful collisions that happen when we're brave enough to see each other. Welcome to our weird, wonderful world. Love, your daughter-in-law, who got there first, Emma." There wasn't a dry eye in aisle 7. Even the self-checkout machines seemed to blink more slowly, as if they too were moved by the moment. By the power vested in me by the state and by the grocery store manager who insisted on being here. The officiant paused as the manager waved from behind the deli counter. "I now pronounce you husband, wife, and the finest example of collision family I've ever seen. You may kiss in the place where your story began." They kissed. Lily hugged their legs. The crowd threw yellow rose petals that would take hours to clean up. But the night shift volunteers were already planning to help, because that's what the buying time family did. They showed up for each other. The reception was in the parking lot. Folding tables, grocery store sheet cake, and a playlist of Emma's favorite songs. The CEO from Seattle flew in. The grandmother from Portland took the bus. The teacher from Miami brought her entire class via video call. "To Emma!" someone shouted, raising a paper cup of grocery store brand soda. "To Emma!" 50 voices responded. "To David and Sarah," another voice called. "To collision families everywhere. To Tuesdays. To $17. To the grocery gospel." You think joy can't dance with grief. You think new love dishonors old love. But watch a supermarket wedding where the dead are as present as the living, where strangers have become family, where $17 started a revolution of seeing. Joy and grief are dance partners, not competitors. Lily stood on a chair, tapping a plastic spoon against her cup until everyone quieted. "I want to make a toast too," she announced with 7-year-old authority. "Emma, thank you for sending us David. David, thank you for buying our milk. Mommy, thank you for saying yes to both. And everybody else, thank you for being cookie people. Now let's eat cake because that's what Emma would want." Wisdom from the mouths of babes. That is what Emma would want. Cake and celebration and the continuation of collision kindness that started with a single Tuesday. As the evening wore on, people shared their numbers. In 2 years, the documented buying time movement had purchased over $2 million in groceries for strangers, spread to 47 countries, started 1,200 local chapters, inspired 15 copycat movements for different kinds of kindness, changed approximately everything for everyone it touched. But David knew Emma would have hated the numbers. She cared about names, not statistics, stories, not spreadsheets. The one becoming the 100, becoming the 1,000, each remaining individual, seen, valued, worth $17 and all the time in the world. "Dance with me," Sarah said, pulling David onto the makeshift dance floor. Really just a cleared section of parking lot. "Here, now, to grocery store music. Where else? When else? What other music could possibly be more us?" So they danced. In a parking lot, under flickering streetlights, to the muzak bleeding from outdoor speakers. Lily joined them, then Marcus, then Mrs. Chen, until the whole reception was swaying to the soundtrack of ordinary life made extraordinary by attention. This is what love looks like in the ruins. Not perfect, not pretty, but absolutely true. It looks like supermarket weddings and collision families, and the brave belief that every ending is also a beginning. 5 years passed. 5 years of Tuesdays, of buying time, of a movement that had become as natural as breathing for millions around the world. Lily was 12 now, all legs and opinions, and her mother's fierce heart mixed with David's quiet wisdom. You measure time in birthdays and anniversaries, but some measures matter more. The first time Lily bought groceries for a stranger with her own saved allowance. The day Marcus graduated college debt-free because the movement had paid it forward. The morning Mrs. Chen passed peacefully knowing she'd spent her last years mattering. "Dad," Lily said one Tuesday, always Tuesday, "I've been thinking about Emma." They were in the car, heading to their weekly grocery run. Sarah was at work. She'd started a non-profit connecting the movement with food banks and social services, making systematic what had begun as random acts. What about her? Would she be proud of all this? Sometimes I worry we've made it too big, too organized. She liked things simple, right? David considered this. His daughter, because that's what Lily was now, in every way that mattered, had never met Emma, but knew her like a sister, grew up on stories of yellow walls and grocery gospels, and the belief that supermarkets were museums of human need. Emma believed in evolution, he said finally. Not just biological. Kindness evolution. She'd say what started simple had to grow complex to survive, had to adapt, develop systems, create structures, but only if it kept its soul. Have we kept our soul? Instead of answering directly, David pulled into the parking lot of a different store. Smaller, in a rougher neighborhood, the kind of place the movement sometimes missed because poverty can be invisible to those who don't live it. "Let's find out," he said. Inside, the lights flickered with age. The produce was wilted at the edges. But the people were the same mix of tired and trying that filled every grocery store everywhere. An elderly man counted change for a single apple. A young mother compared formula prices with the intensity of a mathematician. A teenager lingered by the day-old bread, calculating hunger against pride. 3 people, David said. "You choose." This was their tradition now, teaching the next generation not through words, but through practice. Lily had been choosing since she was 8. had developed Emma's eye for need, that ability to see past surfaces to souls. "All of them," Lily said, "but not just buying. Watch." She approached the elderly man first. "Excuse me, sir. My dad and I are doing a project on apples for school. Could you help us pick the best ones? We'll pay you for your expertise. Say $20. The man's pride stayed intact. His expertise was valued. The $20 tucked into his palm felt earned, not given. To the mother, Lily said, "Ma'am, we accidentally bought 2 cases of this formula last week. Would you mind taking some off our hands? It's just going to expire." A lie wrapped in kindness, preserving dignity while providing need. For the teenager, she simply stood beside him at the bread rack. "If you're getting the wheat, get 2. They're doing a secret buy one, get one today. I heard the cashier talking." Another gentle fiction that let a hungry kid eat without feeling pitied. David watched his daughter work, Emma's spiritual heir, Sarah's practical student, his own heart walking around outside his body. This was evolution, not just buying groceries, but buying dignity, not just giving, but empowering. "The soul's intact," he said when they were back in the car. "Different body, same soul." Lily grinned. "Can we go to our regular store now? Marcus is working today and he promised to show me the new initiative." The new initiative. Marcus, once the teenager counting change for soup, now a store manager implementing dignity shelves, products priced at whatever people could afford, no questions asked, no shame attached. The movement had created its own leaders, its own innovations, its own ways of institutionalizing kindness without killing it. At their regular store, David watched Lily chat with Marcus, help stock the dignity shelves, greet the regular Tuesday crowd who'd become extended family. 5 years ago, he'd stood in this same store drowning in grief. Now his daughters really, both Emma and Lily, had taught him to swim. "Mr. Chen," a woman approached, holding a baby. "I'm so glad you're here. This is Emma. We named her after your Emma. She's the reason we met." The woman's husband appeared, the same man who'd had twins melting down in a cart 5 years prior. They'd met at a movement meeting, bonded over single parenting, blended their families, created new life, and named her after the ghost who'd brought them together. Baby Emma grabbed David's finger with that startling strength newborns possess. Another Emma in the world, another chance to paint walls yellow and see supermarkets as sacred and believe that $17 can change everything. "She's perfect," David managed. "We're having her birthday parties on Tuesdays," the father said. "And when she's old enough, we'll teach her about the first Emma. About buying time, about seeing people. You think legacy ends with death, but watch a baby named for a dead girl grab a grieving grandfather's finger in a grocery store where love was born from loss. Legacy doesn't end. It multiplies, it evolves, it wraps tiny fingers around your heart and refuses to let go." That night, David found Sarah on their bedroom floor, surrounded by photos and journals and 5 years of letters from strangers. "What's all this?" "I'm writing a book," she said. "The Emma story. The real one. Not the feel-good version the media tells, but the messy, beautiful truth of it. Will you help?" David sat beside her, picking up a photo of Emma at 16, already dreaming of grocery gospels and collision kindness. "Every word," he promised. "Because stories demand telling. Because Emma deserved more than myth. She deserved truth. Because somewhere, someone was standing in a checkout line, drowning in their own grief, needing to know that $17 could be the beginning of everything." Chapter 12. The book came out on a Tuesday. Of course it did. The Grocery Gospel, How $17 Started a Movement, hit shelves in 27 languages simultaneously. But David and Sarah had insisted on something unusual. For every copy sold, a stranger's groceries would be bought somewhere in the world. You write books to be read, but sometimes you write them to be lived. Every purchase became an action, every reader a participant in the ongoing story. The launch party was in the original supermarket, now bearing a small plaque by Register 3. The buying time movement began here with an act of collision kindness. Lily, now 13 and poised at that edge between child and young woman, stood at the podium they'd set up between aisles 6 and 7. "My sister Emma died before I was born," she began, and the crowd of hundreds went silent. "But she's been alive in my life every day, through her dad who became my dad. Through her ideas that became our actions. Through her belief that supermarkets are museums of human need." She paused, looking out at the assembled crowd. Reporters and readers, movement members and curious strangers, all gathered in a grocery store to celebrate a girl who'd found the sacred in the ordinary. Emma wrote that kindness is a syntax, a way we learn to speak human to each other again. For 5 years, we've been learning this language together. Today, we're not just launching a book. We're graduating from students to teachers. Each of you who reads this story becomes responsible for teaching someone else the grocery gospel. When had Lily become this person? This leader, this speaker, this carrier of torches she'd inherited before she could walk? David watched his living daughter channel his dead daughter and felt the particular pride that comes from raising children who surpass you. Sarah squeezed his hand, both of them recognizing Emma's spirit in Lily's words. "Before we celebrate," Lily continued, "we have work to do. Everyone here was asked to bring $20, not for us. We don't need your money, but someone in this store does. Right now, today. Find them, buy their time, start another story, because that's what Emma would do. That's what cookie people do. That's what we do." 300 people scattered through the store like kindness agents on a mission. David watched them go, lawyers and teachers, teenagers and retirees, all united in the simple act of seeing strangers as family. An hour later, the store manager reported that not a single customer had paid for their own groceries. Every transaction covered by someone else, chains of kindness linking stranger to stranger until the whole store hummed with connection. "She would have loved this," Sarah said, watching the orchestrated chaos of compassion. "She did love this," David corrected. "She saw it all, wrote it down. We're just catching up to her vision." The book signing line stretched around the block, but this wasn't a normal signing. Each person who bought a book also received a buying time commitment card, a pledge to perform one act of collision kindness within the week and report back. "Make it real," David told each person. "Don't just read about it, live it." A reporter from the New York Times approached. "Mr. Chen, critics say the movement has become commercialized. That selling a book about kindness defeats the purpose. How do you respond?" David had expected this, had practiced his answer, but Lily stepped forward before he could speak. "My sister believed in tools," she said simply. "Books are tools. They carry ideas across time and space. Every dollar from this book buys someone's groceries. Every story shared creates 10 more stories. If that's commercialization, then commercialize everything. Commercialize compassion until it's the only currency that matters." The reporter blinked, then smiled. "Can I quote you on that?" "Quote Emma. She's the one who taught us. We're all just her students pretending to be teachers." As the day wore on, stories poured in on social media. The book buyers were already out in the world, buying time, creating collisions, speaking Emma's syntax of kindness. "Just bought coffee for the mom with 3 kids climbing the walls. She cried. I cried. The barista cried. Emma lives." Buying time. Paid for an old man's prescription. He said his wife just died, and this was the first kind thing since. "We're having dinner tomorrow." Udi grocery gospel. Covered a teenager's art supplies. Turns out she's applying to the same art school Emma wanted to attend. The universe is not subtle. Collision kindness. You think movements peak and fade, but some movements become rhythms, become habits, become the way a species remembers how to be human. As the sun set on launch day, David, Sarah, and Lily sat in their car in the parking lot where it all began. The same spot where David had cried after that first Tuesday. The same pavement that had witnessed 100 small miracles. "Read the dedication," Sarah said, holding the book. David opened to the front page. For Emma, who saw supermarkets as sacred. For Lily, who keeps the gospel alive. For Sarah, who said yes to Collision Family. And for everyone who has $17 and the courage to see. This book is your story too. "There's something else," Lily said, pulling out an envelope. "I've been saving this. Emma's last journal entry, the one from the hospital. I wanted to wait until today." David's hands shook as he took the familiar handwriting. "If you're reading this, I'm probably gone, and Dad's probably sad, and the world probably feels a little less bright. But here's what I know. Love is a verb, not a feeling. Kindness is a syntax, not a statement. And supermarkets are where heaven touches earth, where strangers become angels, where $17 can start a revolution. Dad, find someone to buy groceries for. Not because I'm telling you to, but because your heart will need somewhere to put all this love to whoever he finds. Thank you for seeing him. Thank you for letting him see you. Thank you for proving that death isn't the end of the story. It's just love changing form. Keep buying time. Keep seeing people. Keep believing that ordinary moments hold extraordinary grace. All my love, all my Tuesdays, all my grocery gospels. Emma P.S. Paint something yellow. Trust me on this." They sat in silence, 3 people bound by loss and found by love, holding a book that was really a promise, surrounded by the ghosts of good deeds and the hope of more to come. "Should we go buy someone's groceries?" Lily asked finally. "It's Tuesday," Sarah pointed out. "Emma Day," David added. They walked back into the store, hand in hand, ready to find the next person who needed their time bought, their story heard, their humanity seen. Because that's what you do when someone leaves you a gospel. You live it, you share it, you trust that somewhere someone is painting their walls yellow, knowing that sadness can't stick to acts of love. The movement continues, the book sells, the groceries get bought, but the real story, Emma's story, your story, our story, happens in the space between strangers, in the moment of seeing, in the decision to buy someone's time when time is all we have to give. What will you do with your $17? Who will you see today? The registers are waiting, the gospel is simple. The only question is whether you'll hear the call. Next in line? That could be you, that could be anyone, that could be the beginning of everything. Go ahead, your Tuesday is waiting.